It's a chilly morning in November 1177. The sun is just peeking over the horizon as two armies face off near the town of Montgisard. The kingdom of Jerusalem's troops, led by the young King Baldwin IV, stand firm, ready to defend their land against the powerful Ayyubid forces under the command of the feared Sultan Saladin. Despite being greatly outnumbered, the Christian knights are filled with resolve, their armor shining in the early morning light. Baldwin, his face concealed behind a mask to hide the effects of leprosy, scans the battlefield from his warhorse. At just 16 years old, he carries the weight of his kingdom on his shoulders. Across the field, Saladin's massive force of over 26,000 men stretches as far as the eye can see. The Sultan, confident in his overwhelming numerical advantage, allows himself a small smile. He is certain that today will mark the beginning of the end for the Crusader states. Little does he know that this day will go down in history as one of the most stunning upsets in medieval warfare. But how did these two powerful leaders end up facing each other on this crucial day? We need to take a step back to understand that. The year is 1174, and the kingdom of Jerusalem is in turmoil. King Amalric I has just died, leaving his 13-year-old son Baldwin as heir to the throne. But this ascension is complex. Some see hope in the boy king, while others whisper concerns about his ability to rule, given his affliction with leprosy. Meanwhile, in Egypt, a rising star in the Muslim world is consolidating his power. Saladin, having overthrown the Fatimid Caliphate, now sets his sight on uniting the Islamic world under his banner. His ultimate goal: to drive the Crusaders from the Holy Land and reclaim Jerusalem for Islam. As the years pass, tensions between the Crusader states and Saladin's growing empire continue to escalate. Skirmishes and raids become commonplace along the borders. In 1177, Baldwin IV, now 16 and fully aware of the threat posed by Saladin, begins to plan for the inevitable confrontation. In September of that year, an opportunity presents itself. The Count of Flanders, Philip of Alsace, arrives in the Holy Land with a sizable force of Crusaders. Baldwin sees a chance to strike at Saladin's territory and proposes a joint attack on the fortress of Hama in Syria. Philip, however, has other ideas. In a heated exchange within the walls of Jerusalem, he argues, "We should focus our efforts on Egypt. That's where Saladin's power base lies." Baldwin, frustrated by Philip's stubbornness, fires back. "And leave our own lands undefended? No, we must strike where it will hurt Saladin most, in Syria." Unable to reach an agreement, Philip takes his forces north to join Raymond III of Tripoli and Bohemond III of Antioch in their own campaign against Hama. Baldwin is left with a difficult choice: either join the northern expedition and leave his kingdom vulnerable, or stay behind with a reduced force to guard against potential attacks. However, the young king's decision is made for him when news arrives of Saladin's movements. The Sultan, having learned of the Christian army's focus on the north, sees an opportunity to strike at the heart of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. On November 18, 1177, Saladin crosses into Christian territory with a massive army. His force, numbering over 26,000 men, is a sight to behold. A sea of banners, glinting spears, and thundering hooves stretching across the horizon. As word of Saladin's advance reaches Jerusalem, panic begins to spread. Baldwin, however, remains calm. In a council meeting with his advisors, he lays out his plan. We cannot match Saladin's numbers, but we can use his overconfidence against him. We'll gather what forces we can and meet him on the field. Reynold of Chatillon, a fierce warrior recently released from captivity in Aleppo, supports the young king's decision. Better to die on our feet than live on our knees, he declares, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. With time running short, Baldwin gathered every knight and soldier he could find. His army, though small, is a formidable force. 375 knights, including 80 Templars and several thousand infantry. Among his trusted commanders are the brothers Baldwin and Balian of Ibelin, Reginald Grenier, and Jocelyn III of Edessa. It wasn't much compared to Saladin's army, but it was all they had. As Saladin's army advances, pillaging and looting the countryside, Baldwin makes a daring move. Instead of waiting for the attack, he decides to take the fight to Saladin. On November 25, the Christian army marches out of Jerusalem, determined to confront the invaders. The two armies meet near the town of Montgisard, close to Ramla. Saladin, caught off guard by the Christians' bold approach, scrambles to organize his troops. His army, spread out across the countryside in search of plunder, is in disarray. Baldwin speaks to his men before the battle. Even though he is sick, his voice is strong. Today we fight for our kingdom and for our faith. God is with us, and we will win. The Christian army's morale soars as the Bishop of Bethlehem steps forward, raising a piece of the true cross. Baldwin dismounts, kneels before the sacred relic, and prays for victory. When he rises, a cheer erupts from his men, inspired by their young king's faith and unwavering determination. Saladin, watching from a nearby hill, scoffs at the small Christian force and tells his commanders, "They are but a morsel for my army to devour. By nightfall, the road to Jerusalem will be open before us." But as the battle begins, it quickly becomes clear that the day will not go as Saladin has planned. The Christian knights, led by Baldwin himself, charge into the disorganized Muslim lines with devastating effect. The Knights Templar in their white coats with red crosses are like a knife cutting through the enemy lines. Saladin's nephew Taqi-ad-Din desperately tries to rally the Muslim forces. "Stand your ground," he shouts above the din of battle. "We are the lions of Islam. We cannot be defeated by this rabble." But the Christian army keeps pushing. Baldwin, despite his physical limitations, fights like a man possessed. His sword rises and falls, cutting down enemy after enemy. The sight of their young, afflicted king fighting so valiantly inspires the Christian soldiers to even greater feats of courage. As the day wears on, the tide of battle turns decisively in favor of the Crusaders. Saladin's mighty army begins to crumble under the relentless assault. The Sultan watches in disbelief as his men flee the field in panic. Taqi-ad-Din, seeing the battle is lost, rides to Saladin's side and pleads, "My lord, we must retreat. If you fall, all is lost." Saladin, his face a mask of anger and humiliation, knows his nephew speaks the truth. With a heavy heart, he gives the order to withdraw. As the Muslim army flees, the Christian knights give chase, cutting down hundreds more in the pursuit. By the time night fell, Baldwin had won a huge victory. Of Saladin's original force of over 26,000 men, only a few thousand have escaped. The rest lie dead on the field of battle or have been taken prisoner. Saladin himself narrowly avoids capture, fleeing on a swift camel into the gathering darkness. In the Christian camp, celebrations erupt as the magnitude of their victory sinks in. Baldwin, exhausted but elated, addresses his triumphant army. Today, we have shown the world that the kingdom of Jerusalem will not fall. With God's grace, we have vanquished a foe that sought to destroy us. Let all who would threaten our lands know that they will meet the same fate. Baldwin's amazing victory shows everyone that he is a great leader, even though he is young and sick. Christians all over the world are overjoyed when they hear the news. They see it as a sign that God is on their side. For Saladin, this defeat is hard to accept. People thought he couldn't be beaten, but now that idea is gone. He'll have to rethink his whole plan for conquering the Holy Land. As the Christian army heads back to Jerusalem, they are tired but proud. They know they have done something incredible. Baldwin rides at the head of his troops, his head held high. Crowds cheer for him, children throw flowers, and people reach out to touch the Leper King who just saved them all. For now at least, the kingdom of Jerusalem is safe. They can go and sleep easier knowing they have such a brave and clever king protecting them. There will be more battles in the future, but tonight he and his people can enjoy this great victory. The same victory it is for us when you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.